Your mindset and your habits are likely keeping you stuck from feeling the way you want to feel and honestly becoming the best version of yourself. That's what we dive into in this episode of It Starts with Attraction. I am joined by Nate Palmer, and Nate is the author of the best-selling book, The $1,000,000 Body. And honestly, he's helped entrepreneurs and busy parents get into the best shape of their lives by using simple training and nutrition frameworks without tracking a single calorie. And if anyone knows me, they know I love to eat. And I don't necessarily want to know how many calories I've eaten. I just want to know that I'm full and that I'm satiated and that I'm moving towards my health and fitness goals. So I loved my conversation with Nate today. He's a coach, he's an author, he's a speaker. He has his own podcast called the Low Carb Hustle Podcast. But he's here today to talk to us about what we can do to help reset our mindset and actionable things that we can start doing today to move towards our health and fitness goals. Let's dive into today's episode. I am super excited, y'all, to have Nate Palmer on with me today. He has written a book called The $1,000,000 Body Method, and it's fantastic. I'm highly going to encourage you all to get one. We'll talk about that at the end and how you can get it. But we're just going to be talking about mindset. We're going to be talking about things we can do to have more energy and meet our goals. So Nate, thanks for joining me today.
Kimberly, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so pumped to be here.
Yeah, thrilled for you to be here. How did you get into this space of health and wellness and mindset? What kind of led you to where you are today?
Childhood trauma.
Yes, like that's probably a lot of people's answer if we're going to be real.
There's a lot of big, strong guys in the gym who are hurt little boys inside.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my story a little bit. Mm-hmm. When I was 11 or 12, my mom had taken my two younger sisters to school, and someone knocked on my front door. I didn't answer. He came around the back, broke a window, broke in the house while I'm there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I grab a steak knife out of the knife block and I go hide under my bed. And I'm like terrified. And we have these hardwood floors. So I can remember very vividly him, like the sound of like heavy work boots coming down the hallway. And then him pounding on my door that I had locked with this little like rinky dink, like push button lock.
And you're 12.
And I was like, I guess I'll die. So I didn't die. That's the spoiler alert.
I'm still good. Yeah.
But I think from that moment on, I wouldn't have been able to say this at the time, but the lack of autonomy and then the feelings of powerlessness, I think really deeply impacted me. And I think from there, I did two things. Number one, I bought all these knives on eBay and they're like, are you 18? I was like, yeah, sure. And then I started to work out because I thought that if I had bigger muscles, neck tattoos, a big beard, like no one could ever hurt me again. And so I operated out of like a fear-based mentality for 10, 15 years after that. And it wasn't until like I was fully into my like coaching career that I was able to transform that to a chasing something positive rather than running from something negative. But that's really where I think that spark came from and why I was so driven to figure out fitness as a whole.
Holy moly. Okay. Well, you have to end the story. Like, did he just walk away? What happened when you were under the bed and he was knocking on your door?
He didn't come through the door, which he could have easily.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah.
So I'm so scared that I'm too scared to call the police because not only am I scared of dying, I'm scared of getting in trouble. So like, I think that maybe if I call the police, maybe I'll get in trouble. So I call my 75-year-old grandpa and he comes over. He's like, you should call the police. But so the guy ends up stealing jewelry. It's the 90s. So VCR, some stuff out of our house and ends up leaving. The cops get there like 5-6 minutes later. So never found him, never anything like that. But
wow, that's crazy. And it was pre-cell phones. So to get to actually call the cops, you'd have to go to the landline, find it wherever it is in the house. Absolutely crazy. Wow. Thankful that happened. And love what you said about how you took it from, for so many years you were running away from something, but in the past couple of years you've realized, what are you running to? Is that how you said it?
Yeah. Like almost switch the motivation from being like, how do I get out of this pain and avoid the fear to like, how do I get towards these amazing things that happen as a result of being in great shape and having a ton of energy and, like using those to elevate my community, my family, and the people around me.
Yeah, I love that. In thinking about your personal story, but also in the people that you've been coaching, what do you see are some of the biggest mindset obstacles that people have that even keep them from getting started on moving towards what they truly want in life?
People have a lot of stories. People tell themselves a lot of stories about themselves, and we are always our own harshest critic. I say stuff to myself that I would never in a million years say to you because it's awful. And I would never tell you those things because they're not true. It's not kind, but yet we say those to ourselves all the time. So I feel like when people start off with a program for a really long time, I was like, I'm a personal trainer. I started off with that and I love exercise and I got into that really heavily, super good at programming, that sort of thing. But I realized that wasn't the answer. So I was like, you know what it is? It's nutrition. So I went really deep on nutrition, wrote the book, $1 Million Body Method. But, even in the last 3 years, I've realized that if you don't have these mindset pieces in place, you will continue to revert back to your old patterns. Because if you do not change your identity, you're not going to be able to sustain a lifestyle change. Because if you always in your head think, oh, I'm the funny fat guy that finishes everything off the plates at the restaurant, you'll never get through a keto program or Whole30 or something like that and go on to make better choices. You'll always revert back to your average. So I think that people need to understand how they talk to themselves and catch themselves in the moment of saying, oh man, I'm not good at exercise. I'm not comfortable in the gym. Because here's the thing is that you might not be good at exercise. You might not be comfortable in the gym. Those could potentially be true, but they're not serving you. Those beliefs are not serving you. So how can we reframe those in a way that's positive and continues to help us move forward? So rather than being like, I've never been good at exercise, you could say, hey, every time I exercise, I get a little bit better at it. Every time I go to the gym, I feel just a little bit more comfortable. I'm starting to understand where the things are, where to walk and where not to walk. So really it's a lot about self-talk and catching ourselves in those moments when we're like, I'm just a failure. I always this, I'm never that. And being like, nope, hold up. Let's change that narrative and then go from there.
That's so hard to do in reality though, right? I mean, when you say it, it's like, yeah, of course, that makes so much sense. Absolutely. We should all do that all the time. But even in the clients that you work with, like, I'm sure you do just what you did here, like explain this to them. They're like, oh, I totally get it. But then what does it actually look like in practice? So you said, when you think of it, but these happen so quickly in our brains and we're just so used to some of these statements, we may not catch it.
It takes a lot of reps, I think, because the more you catch it, the more you catch it. And so previously on my coaching calls when I was working with people, I would say like, we'd be talking and they'd be like, I'm so bad at preparing lunch. I just can never eat healthy at dinner. And I'd be like, okay, well, here's 6 different recipes, and solve the problem. By the way, I've gotten to be a better husband from doing this as well. So I would give them tactics. I would solve their problem. I was like, I got all the solutions in the world. But now I go, okay, take a second with that. Like you just said, you're bad at lunch. You said you're a bad sleeper. No one's a bad sleeper. Everyone can be good at lunch if they try. So go back and talk me through that. And then let's find a better way to say that and a way that you can actually get out of your own head. And oftentimes I don't need to come up with a bunch of recipes now because they already know recipes. It's not like if I lay out a bunch of food on a table, people are going to not have a hard time identifying what's healthy and what's not. Everyone's going to point to the pizza and be like, not healthy, apple healthy, right? So we all know, but it's just about like catching yourself in that moment or having someone who's bold enough to call you on it and continuing to use that as a catalyst to change your identity and shift your self-talk.
Yeah. I'm thinking about some of the decisions we make, like in a day-to-day basis of what we're going to eat or even how we talk to ourselves. Some of that has to be predicated on other things in our life, like how well we slept, right? The less sleep we get, the less likely we are to make smart choices in our day.
I literally put out a reel on that exact topic today.
Yeah. Well, it's so true. Sleep is one of my favorite things to do and to encourage other people to do. And my favorite, and this happens like people on my team all the time, they're like, oh, Kimberly, I don't need more than 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about that. Yeah. But I digress. The bottom line of it is like it's kind of this catch-22 in some ways because you want to encourage people to have a better mindset, but there are certain things that can help them have a better mindset that they may not be doing because they're stuck in their mindset. So like practically where do you kind of get people to start?
So I might butcher this, but Byron Katie has a series of 4 questions that I have people ask. So number 1, is this true? Okay. So, and like maybe you're a bad sleeper. Could be true, could be not be true. The second question is it absolutely irrefutably true?
Mm.
Okay. No, not necessarily true that I'm a bad sleeper. Okay. What happens if you believe that? Well, I'm a bad sleeper. Well, I don't get a lot of sleep. I always wake up feeling groggy. I got brain fog. I'm not going to get to bed as on time. What would happen if you believed something else or the opposite? And if you can ask yourself those 4 questions, I think you can lead yourself down like a coaching rabbit hole
Mm.
where you can start to coach yourself and start really understanding what are those stories you're telling yourself and how can you change the narrative to be in line with the goals and the life that you desire.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Even just, as you said, changing the narrative, even just the way you say that about yourself, because I'm bad at this is kind of a cop out. Like it gives you an excuse to just not work on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or as opposed to, I'm struggling with this, or it's like my biggest opportunity right now is in enhancing or optimizing my sleep. Then it's like, oh, well, what can I do in order to get there? Right.
I love that framing of just, it's not hard. It's not bad. It's just different. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity.
It's an
And when we
opportunity.
take things out of like the problem bucket in our head and we add it to the new or different or opportunity buckets, we can approach them differently with a little bit more energy than those things that were like, oh, another diet or exercise program. We just feel like weakened by it.
Right.
So it gives you the ability to like play with your own brain and almost self-hypnotize by using language to push yourself towards the goals you want.
Yeah. How do you encourage people to even think about the goals they want? Actually, in the podcast I recorded earlier today, which I don't know which one's going to hit first, but this was something that came out of a lot of people just kind of say things like, I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to do X, Y, or Z, but they don't necessarily know why or why that's a goal for them. So how do you encourage people to think through setting goals and working towards that goal?
So I first start off in my intro, like sales call. I get really in depth with people. So I believe that that's like the first contact is a coaching call. And so I start coaching right off the bat, and it's not necessarily like me telling them stuff, but it's me trying to pull back the layers. Right. So like this happened a couple of weeks ago where a guy came in and he's like, I want to lose 25 pounds. And I was like, who cares? Why do you want to lose 25 pounds? He goes, well, I want to get healthy. I'm like, why do you want to get healthy? And people start being like, yeah, I know what you're getting at here, but it's important. And I always go like, this is going to be an annoying series of questions, but at the end of it, you're going to have a lot of clarity. Okay. So why do you want to get healthy? Well, I want to live longer. Well, who cares if you live longer? Why is that important? Well, I want to be around to, see my kids grow up. Okay. Why do you want to see your kids grow up? Because my dad wasn't there for me when I was growing up, and I don't want my kids to have that same experience. And you're like, boom, like, okay, that is a reason why to do something.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep you motivated and moving forward more than just like a 25-pound loss, because anyone can lose 25 pounds and regain it. Look at the Biggest Loser contestants.
Right.
But if you have a really deep why, I need to stay healthy so I can walk my daughter down the aisle. And because I want to be the dad that I never had growing up. Holy cow. Like what a difference in motivation. Like I get like chills just even saying it. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the first thing, is getting very, very clear on why, because losing 25 pounds and getting healthy are not why.
Right.
It never is. It's always deeper than that. Absolutely.
I 100% agree with you on that, Nate. And I think it's a brilliant place for people to start as they're setting goals. A lot of in your book, which is called The $1 Million Body Method, and we'll have links in the show notes of where you can get Nate's book. Actually, it's getnatesbook.com, but be sure you listen to the entire episode. Don't go now. You got to listen. Got to listen to everything. You really outline these, and it's kind of written probably more so in the mindset of like an entrepreneur, someone who's really wanting to be at a high level, perform at a high level, cares a lot about getting maximum return on invested time because time is limited. But this is just as applicable for the mom who's busy and feels like she can't, but that's kind of how the book is written. But you talk about these daily investments. So where did you come up, or not necessarily where did you come up with it, but why do you focus on these 7 daily investments? Why are these the most important ones you think that are out there for people to meet the health goals that they have?
So I took the things that I've been talking about with clients for years and years and the things that I think that people who are the most successful do on a regular basis. So like you notice I didn't say anything about sleep, but I have write down your 3 critical tasks for the day. And I think that is honestly more helpful for some of these people that I work with because they sit in bed and their head just spins. And they're
Absolutely.
thinking about all the things they need to do tomorrow. But if you can
Yeah.
get really clear on what would I do tomorrow to constitute a win, then you can go to sleep, wake up with clarity and go about your business and be much more effective. So, like I try to encompass kind of the full spectrum of health and wellness into a couple different things that you can do over the course of the day that's going to bring you energy and help keep you on track. Because, going back to the why, a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with, they'll skip the gym to go sign a deal or to do a meeting or, do business.
Yeah.
So how can we make their nutrition lead to better business success? So that way they're like, oh, well, I know when I eat healthy, when I follow these investments, I'm making more money. And again, just like, how do we keep people sustaining these things longer? Because a lot of diets are good and they work, but if you can't continue to do them for months, years, or decades, then they're kind of worthless.
Yeah. I've done the Whole 30, I think 3 times.
That's a
And
tough one. That's probably one of the toughest diets out there.
well, it's to your point of I do it for 30 days and on day 30 I'm like I feel great. I should keep doing this, but old habits die hard. Clearly and actually my husband and I did it once for 75 days and I lost so much weight. I actually became very unhealthy and was having panic attacks on a daily basis. Like it was not good. I was not
Whoa.
eating enough for what I was doing and for how I was training. And I was probably intermittent fasting in there and different things like that. All of it to say, like, for me, and I know many of my listeners and just many people in general, we tend to focus more on the exercise part of it. Oh, if I need to be healthier or lose weight, I'm just going to exercise or exercise more. And your protocol, your system, which I agree with, it really has more to do with the nutrition side of it, at least first, getting the nutrition dialed in. And one of the things you talk about is how breakfast is a really important meal of the day. And I really want to ask you about this because I have skipped breakfast for 7 years.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
So
I'm not
a
saying it's the
couple,
right decision. It's just what I've been doing. So let's talk about it.
yeah. So, I mean, like right off the bat, like I used to prescribe intermittent fasting. I did it for about 2 years straight. I liked it. I thought it was good. But what ended up happening and that made me kind of shift away from it was that it became like the first meal of the day, like lunch at 11 or
Yep.
12 or 1, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
became this big experience where I was so excited to eat that I was dragging the rest of the day. I wanted to fall onto the desk and take a nap. I just didn't feel that good.
Yeah.
So when I started eating something that's higher in proteins and fats in the morning, I had an easier time sustaining my blood sugar all day. I would then eat again at like 2 o'clock, have something really light to get me through to dinner. And then dinner would be my biggest meal of the day. And that was a great way of just maintaining great energy throughout the day because I think blood sugar and energy levels are highly correlated and no one's talking about it.
Mm,
Secondly, to your point about intermittent fasting, I don't recommend it for women anymore because it seems like at the 4 to 6 week mark, it can be detrimental from a hormonal standpoint. So I'm talking specifically to premenopausal women. At
yeah.
postmenopausal, they do great with intermittent fasting. But sometimes what you'll see in that demographic is decreased sleep or insomnia, hair loss, missing periods, things like that, that are really, really negative because fasting is great. I love it. I promote it, but I like a prolonged fast because fasting is a stressor. And
Yeah.
exercise is a stressor too. They're good stresses, eustress, right? But if you're having that on a daily basis ongoing, your body is going to prioritize reproductive health above your own health. Similar to like when a woman is pregnant, her body will pull nutrients from her bones, from her muscles to make sure that the baby is fed. So if the mom's not taking care of herself, the baby's going to get his or, theirs, but you have to be prioritizing your own health there. So your body's very, very smart and it wants us to like reproduce. So it's going to do what it takes to get that. And if that means you lose out on some nutrients, that's what's going to happen. So I don't recommend that for women for very long.
Yeah. When in your in the book you talk about one of the first daily investments is the morning routine and then right after it it's the breakfast and your morning routine includes exercise. Do you think that exercise you get the most bang for your buck doing exercise early in the morning and then eating your first meal right after that?
Yes, but not because it's special to do it in the morning, but because most busy people don't have time in the afternoons, or their days don't belong to them after like 8:30, you know?
Yeah, that's very
So
true.
I found that just getting it done, it starts your day on a great note. You have a lot of energy. Your body's more able to actively utilize calories like afterwards. And then there's more chance of it happening on a regular basis. So for that reasons, I always push people towards a morning workout, but I don't think there's anything inherently special about it. Um, I tend to prefer it myself, but I think
Yeah.
it's mostly just a way to stay more consistent.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. Throughout the book, you also talk about kind of optimizing your nutrition around glycogen. So, can you talk about what that means and then what that looks like in a daily practice?
Yeah. So I always think back to when I was working as a bag boy at Albertsons, really illustrious job. A lot of people are talking about it. But when we would restock the milk in the back, basically, you know, people would come in and they would grab a milk out, but we didn't take the new milk and bring it around front and put the new milk in front and let the old milk sit there, because that's going to result in like milk going bad, you know, losing product, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I call it first in, first out. So what we would do is we'd come around and we put the milk in the back, right? And that's how we want to think about with our body's natural energy sources, which is called glycogen or glucose. That's how we use that's what we use for energy to power our muscles. So each pound of muscle can hold about 11 grams of glucose. Your liver can hold about 110 grams. And we use it during the day. We use it for thinking. We use it for movement. We use it for exercise. So generally during the day, what I want to be doing is not refilling those glycogen stores, because your body's always going to take what you give it first. So like if you eat a hamburger and French fries for lunch, your body's going to go to work burning off the hamburger and French fries before it pulls from fat or stored energy. And then if there's leftovers, they'll be like, oh, it goes on right on the love handles. Nice. So we want to make sure that we're all day long utilizing our stored glycogen. So that way, when you do have a bigger meal, you have more carbohydrates or something at night, which is what I recommend. Those are not going to be going towards the love handles and the belly fat. They're going to go to refill the stores that you emptied out during the day. And I think when you can start wrapping your mind around this, because glycogen is a big, scary term that no one likes. But when you can start thinking about it like as like, you know, a gas tank or that milk analogy, you can start being like, okay, I just need to move a little bit more before I refill my stores.
Can someone know when they need to refill their glycogen stores? Because really, what is that? It's eating carbs, right? Like at
Correct.
its.
Yeah.
So how would someone kind of know? Can they? Can they know if they're depleted and need to eat more, if they have too much and need to burn it off first?
Yes and no. Most of the time, people right now are very not in touch with their bodies.
Yeah.
So we feel hungry because we've been eating at the same time for the last, you know, 2 decades.
Yeah.
So it's not it's not about necessarily feeling hunger and being like, I need food. It's like feeling hunger from either a sugar craving that gets sent to your brain, because there's bacteria in your gut that feeds on sugar. When it doesn't have enough, it'll send this signal to your brain using this hormone called ghrelin. It's like, hey, yo, let's get some food in us. And instead of eating like, you know, a handful of blueberries, we eat a donut, right? So most people are not in touch with their body enough to know this. And really, when it comes down to it, it's really hard to unload all your glycogen. The endurance community has a term for it. They call it bonking. You heard of this?
I don't think I have. No.
So it's when like you're running for a long time or cycling or doing an Ironman, and all of a sudden you just are like, that's it. I have to sleep now.
I'm done.
Yeah. And that's when your body's actually out of glycogen. You bonk, or you just kind of get lightheaded. You get a little bit like, I just can't anymore. We don't want to get to that point. But I will say that I don't feel like very many people are training at a high enough level and eating carbs at a low enough level that this is problematic for 99% of people.
Yeah.
If you are a triathlete, or if you're working outside digging ditches all day, yes, let's have that conversation. But for most of us, we have plenty of energy stored that we can start making use of.
Yeah. Yeah. So your recommendation is your first 2 meals of the day, for those to be protein heavy, vegetable heavy, but not starch or carb or sugar heavy.
Correct. Yeah.
And you save that for nighttime.
Which is so much more fun, right? I don't want to eat dessert at breakfast.
Well, that's
Although
true.
all breakfast foods are like, it's a muffin.
Dessert.
You're like, that's cake.
Right. It's basically a cupcake
Yeah.
or or like a very small layer of cake, like a pancake. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's very true. And that's something I've even just noticed anecdotally over the past couple of years. If I eat something super carb heavy at lunch, I'm just dead in the water. Like exactly. I'm like I can't focus. I'm my brain fog. But at night, like that's typically when I eat my most that's when I'll have my sweet potato or, whatever. Do you recommend that people try and evenly space out the size and calories of their meals? Or do you recommend like a lighter lunch, not just in it not being carb heavy, but also like not 1,000 calories?
This is a great question. Yeah, I recommend eating a lot lighter during the day, saving most of your calories and your carbohydrates for the PM. Because if you have a really nutrient dense breakfast, like eggs and sausage, eggs and avocado, or a protein shake, then you're having like, 6 to 8 ounces of meat and then a handful of baby carrots, some vegetables or something like that. Even like a piece of fruit at lunch can be a great option. But you're not necessarily ever getting full to the point where you feel like you're lethargic or you have low energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have so much more flexibility. It's like nutritional insurance. So like if you have a glass of wine or you have a cup, like a slice of cheesecake, it's not the end of the world. Are you going to lose weight doing that? Maybe not, but you will be able to maintain your current weight until you get a little bit tighter, which I think is a fun balance to play with. Just having like that tool or the framework to be able to make sure that you are like eating on plan, no matter if you're at a restaurant, at grandma's house, or, at a hotel.
Yeah.
Here, the reason for this though, and is interesting, is because do you know the difference between parasympathetic nervous system dominance and sympathetic nervous system dominance?
Oh, heavens. So dominance, no, but and this is the one I always have to remind myself. So parasympathetic is the fight or flight,
Opposite.
or is it?
Rest and
I
digest.
always get it wrong. Sympathetic is the fight or flight. That's about as far as my knowledge goes on this subject.
I always think of it as like para. That's like, like handicap wheelchair. So if you're parasympathetic, you might be sitting down. That's my mental model there. But sympathetic is fight or flight, or what I like to call of shake and bake, So it's not necessarily like there's a spectrum, right? Over here, you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, but like in the middle, like that's when you're tuned in, you're focused, you're doing a podcast. Like right now, I'm in sympathetic nervous system dominance. You can hear that in my voice because I'm talking really freaking fast. It's a lifestyle.
You're energized. That's what it is. You're just energized.
So during the day, that's when we're like hunting, right? If you think back to how we like came up, we've only been an agrarian society or industrialized for a couple hundred years. So most of the time we can think of it as like hunting or resting, right? So during the day, that's when we're hunting, we're working, we're focused, we're trying to be on. And if you never push yourself to being full, you never shift into that parasympathetic nervous system dominance. But then at nighttime, like you said, you're having those sweet potatoes, you're having more of your carbs at night, you're naturally going to shift into kind of a rest and digest state, which is going to set you up for better sleep, as well as helping you wake up with more energy. And then you have all the glycogen stores that you filled at dinner that are going to be full for the next day.
You're full for that early morning workout.
That's right.
Get you ready to go. That makes a ton of sense. How do you think about, well, actually, I want to go back to the fasting thing first. So do you recommend any kind, like even if it's a 12-hour intermittent fast? I know in the book you talk about a 24-hour a week fast, I believe, which freaks me out. But tell us more about what you do think about fasting.
So I love these prolonged fasts, and prolonged is anything after 24 hours. I'll never have anyone do a fast that's longer than 72 because after about 3 days, your body will start breaking down muscle tissue. And we just don't want that. It's expensive. It's hard to build. But the thing about prolonged fasting that's amazing is that once like a 24-hour fast is worth about 8 16-hour fasts, as crazy as that sounds. Because at the end of 16 hours, your body is just starting to switch on the autophagy process where you pull out broken and like used cells and repair and replace them. So it's just starting that. And then you're starting to get into a really significant fat burn state as well. So if you just take it the extra 8 hours, you're getting way better results. And then the cool thing about it, Kimberly, is I think that when you are able to fast for 24 or 48 hours is kind of my favorite, it starts to reset your body's natural settings. So like we talked about earlier, most people aren't in tune with their body enough to know when they need carbohydrates. Well, if you start fasting and you're fasting 48 hours on a regular basis, what's going to happen is these hunger spikes that you get at breakfast and lunch and dinner at 9 p.m., they start to get more and more and more muted because it's now going from being this cognitive thing of like, I eat at 8:30 to being like, I don't have to eat if I don't want to. You develop this mental fortitude. It's really similar to like cold plunging or things like that, doing something that's hard, especially in a world where we're just inundated all the time with food and food ads. We're not ever in a place where we can't eat.
Yeah.
So putting yourself in a position where you're like, I'm not eating till dinner tomorrow night or whatever that is so powerful and so rewarding. So going back to even our early in the conversation about that identity shift. Mm-hmm. So let's say we say, oh, I'm going to fast for 48 hours. Now you're the type of person who can fast for 48 hours. So you said it, you did it, and you're changing your beliefs about yourself while you're changing some of your body's natural rhythms as well, which is so, so cool to see, because after a while, people will be like, yeah, I wasn't really hungry for lunch today. So I just had something like really, really light. I didn't need any food. I just kind of, went through it, or I just drank some aminos and I was good. And once you get to that point, like it almost becomes a game. It's fun to be able to see how you feel, how long you can push yourself. And the moral superiority is real.
For sure. This is a really random question, and it's only because I'm currently reading this book that, well, I'll tell you what it said after I asked the question. What do you think about calories?
I love them.
You love
so good.
Like you love to eat them. But what do you think about like the kind of like the standard American diet or whatever? They recommend 2,000 calories per person. Agree?
That's right.
Disagree?
Yeah. You and I should be eating the exact same amount of calories. I was thinking about that. I think that like 2,000 is kind of like the one they put on the back of the labels, right? To just give us some metric. Yeah. But I like, everyone has individual calorie needs based off of like lifestyle, your stress levels, how many steps you're getting, how hard you're working out. What are you doing on a daily basis? Do you stand or do you sit at a desk? Are you twitchy or not? Just something like toe tapping, just a random toe, like someone who is a bit of a toe tapper will burn a couple hundred extra calories per day doing that. So there's a massive swing in what people need. So I don't really agree that everyone should be having 2,000 calories. What I do think, though, is that everyone should be having their body weight in grams of protein and prioritizing that. And I think that's a pretty easy rule to follow. But if you want to go into the standard American diet, I got stuff to say about that. So you just let me know.
I'll give you your soapbox in just a minute. No, I 100% agree with the protein. I'm listening to this book called Burn, and it's about metabolism. Anyway, the interest in it, I need to finish it because I'm just kind of in the middle of it. But it said that the reason that everything says 2,000 calories on, boxes and things is just because about 30 years ago, they did a study and they had like a couple hundred men, hundred women self-report the amount of calories that they ate in a day. And the average between the two was 2,000. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, they self-reported, which cannot be right. And secondly, like you're averaging men and women together to get that. Bottom line of it is the soapbox that I would love for you to get on, having to do with calories, is the people who say, well, I'll just eat 1,200 calories a day. And
Isn't that funny how that's the standard weight loss calories for women?
Yeah.
Men it's 1,500, women it's 1,200 calories, and that's just it. That's all you get.
I love food, and the thought of 1,200 calories being my maximum in a day is very sad to me.
Yeah. And I think that you can do that and lose weight. And the reason that it's such a common number is because a lot of trainers, dietitians, nutritionists will put their clients on that because they know it gets results. People will always lose weight on a 1,200 calorie diet. And then they'll always regain that same weight. It's just really, it's great. But there's nowhere to go from there. I think that, if you're trying to cut down, let's say you're a 225 pound man and you want to get down to 185, you're on 1,200 calories, you get down to about 210. What are you going to do? Cut to 800?
Right.
No,
you're not.
There's nowhere else to go. So
right.
I much prefer focusing in on just nutrient rich foods and then adding in some movement too, because movement is amazing. It's medicine for sure. And the more movement you do and the more muscle you have in that order, the more calories you can burn. So someone who's 200 pounds with, 10% body muscle is going to burn way less calories in a day than someone who's 200 pounds and has 20% of their skeletal or their weight coming from skeletal muscle.
Yeah. When in thinking about movement, so I'm thinking about two groups of people. There's the person who's like, I don't even know where to get started in working out. It's all intimidating. I don't know what to do. And then maybe there's the person who feels like they should be at a certain level, but they're not. And so they don't want to go to the gym because they don't want to be embarrassed. Where would you recommend that people start when they're just needing to begin movement?
If you're first starting out and you just go outside and walk, if you can walk for an hour a day, try to get about 8,000 steps, that's one of the best things you can do, because not only is that a good way to burn some calories and a higher percentage from fat, but you're also de-stressing, you're getting outside. It's a win-win. So if you can do as much walking as possible, that's an amazing place to start. But if you live in North Dakota and you can't walk outside because it's horrible, one exercise technique that I love, I call it 30-15-3. And so I recommend this to people. It's something you can work up to, but it's 30 minutes on a 15 incline treadmill at a 3 speed. And, obviously if you start at 8 incline and 2 speed and work up, that's great. And also don't touch the handles. Don't hold on at all.
That is not a joke of a workout right there. What you just said is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it takes a minute to get there, but it's so great because it's done in 30 minutes. You get a great sweat. You don't do any high impact activities. It's better than running, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that you build up with the posterior chain, which is the fancy trainer way of saying the back of your body. Mm-hmm. So those muscles that don't get a lot of love because we're always focused on the mirror muscles,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I would always have people start. Strength training is awesome. But I get that there's a higher bar, like a barrier of entry to that than just walking.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think those are two great ones. I also had someone tell me, this was probably 10 years ago, and I guess it's not wrong, but I'd never heard it since then, that doing that same thing, like putting it on a 10 to 15% of, max incline that the treadmill can get, also helps with core strength. Have you ever heard that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you've ever go do that with a weight vest on, you'll understand your abs are sore the next day because you got to be leaned in, you got to be moving, That's why it's so funny when you see people at the gym and they're holding on and it's a huge incline and they're holding on and walking backwards, basically making it a 0 incline. You're like, that's defeating the purpose. Why don't you put it flat?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What about how often a week to try and work out?
So one of the daily investments is move for 20 minutes. And I think that that's something we need to be working on, sweat every single day. Mm-hmm. Never let a day go by where you're not sweating at least a little bit. It's just so important to do. That being said, I don't think you should be in the gym pounding weights 7 days per week. I like to do, maybe between 3 and 4 workout days per week, 3 and 4 cardio days per week, and then walking on any day where I'm not doing either of those things. And also walking on days when I am doing those things, because it doesn't really impact my recovery except for to improve it.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, I know in the book you talk about waking up at a set time, doing your workout, but when you start kind of adding some of these things together, like if you're going to do cardio, if you're going to do strength training, if you're going to walk on top of that, how do you recommend people just think about their day and managing their time throughout the day to make sure they have time to get their work done, but also that they're prioritizing their health?
So I think that's what the first couple hours of the day are for, is waking up a little bit earlier and using that time for the main thing that you're focused on. So if your main thing right now is getting into really great shape, then putting fitness at the front of your day is probably the best option. If it's blowing up your business, then sitting at your computer and doing that deep work that needs to get done, I think you can get 3 hours worth of work done in an hour if you do it first thing in the morning. So I always recommend do the important thing first. And then I love the idea of bringing people with you. I like a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time to walk. I have to be with my family. I'm like, you can't walk with your family. Show your kids what it looks like to live a healthy lifestyle. Kids don't care what you have to say because more is caught than taught anyways. Yeah. So if you can see the neighbor across the street, be like, hey, you want to go to walk with us? Hey, we're going to get a workout in at the park this Saturday. Hey, we're all going outside right now. If you can just continue to bring people with you, I think it eliminates this idea of oh man, I wish I had an accountability partner. You're the accountability partner. You're the one who's bringing it up. And then by proxy, it's the same thing as me. Like I've got, a couple thousand followers on Instagram. And if I'm like not adhering to my own standards, if I'm eating a bunch of crap and not working out, people are going to call me on it. So if you're the type of person who's bringing other people with you, taking the family on a walk, when you don't go for a walk for a week, your kid's going to be like, what's up? And then you have that additional accountability just baked in. So I always think it's like the more often you can bring people with you and like have your kids at the gym, work out at home, have the kids watching you, like that's quality time. You're getting it done and you're showing the standard, which is, I think, a huge win.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. My kids sometimes like to go on the walk with me. Depends how far. Depends how far I walk. 9 and 6.
Okay, so we're a little younger than that, so we're still in the stroller, which has been nice.
Oh,
a big wagon I push.
Oh yeah, I can see that being way easier. Although my 6-year-old is my son, and he loves running, so he'll like sprint probably 50 yards as fast as possible, or 50 meters as fast as possible, and then I'll kind of catch up to him, and then he'll do it again, and then he's totally worn out, and everyone wins. And it's a great thing. Well, Nate, there's a lot of topics that we've kind of touched on today. Of course, your book goes more into detail about each of them, but one of the things I love my listeners to take away with is, what is something that I can begin to do today or tomorrow to make a positive change in my life? So of everything that we've talked about, what would you say is the top thing, and maybe your secondary encouragement of where people should get started and why that is the most important?
I would say we didn't really go into detail on this, but the morning routine is really critical because the more decisions you force yourself to make in the morning, the less energy you have. You get that decision fatigue later in the day, or it impacts your business, right? Yeah. We don't need to spend time thinking about what we need to make for breakfast or what color shirt we need to wear. Have a lot of those things on autopilot. Have your AM routine on autopilot. And for that reason, I recommend just a super simple, like 90-second morning routine that you can add on. You can do your journaling, affirmations, cold plunge, whatever else, but start off with 60 seconds of explosive exercise, like jumping jacks. Just do 60 seconds of jumping jacks and drink 32 ounces of water. So 1 minute exercise, 2 glasses of water. And I think that is in a fantastic place if you want more energy in your life. Both of those things are designed for energy. The exercise is going to, again, activate your sympathetic nervous system. And then the water is going to rehydrate you and get your brain working, because all night we're breathing out moist air. We're getting dehydrated. So that's one of the things you can just start doing in 90 seconds. That's going to have a profound impact on your day, because not only is you're going to feel good, have more energy, which is going to allow you to make better choices. But if you get a bunch of wins early, then everything else just starts getting rolling your way. If you wake up and you're behind and you're late for a meeting and you can't figure out how to tie your tie, how hard is it to catch up and rest your day back and actually, get back on track? Most people can't do that. So if you can get up a little earlier and have that system in place, it makes it super, super easy. The second thing I would say is if you're looking for to get leaner and live longer, do a fast, do a 24-hour fast. So stop eating tonight, eat again tomorrow night. Just try that, see how you feel, and watch your self-confidence improve from that.
So men and women, no matter what age, healthy to do. And you specified it a little bit, but when does the 24 hours actually start? Does it start when you wake up one morning and you just don't eat? Or does it start after lunch on a certain day? When do you start the clock and when do you stop it?
As soon as you stop eating, then start the clock.
As soon as you stop eating.
I know you're going to be digesting food for a couple hours, but I think it's a moot point to really split hairs on that.
Yeah. And do you recommend that kind of like a sundown to sundown type of thing? So people just kind of eat lunch, they don't eat dinner, and they eat dinner the next night?
I recommend, honestly, eat dinner tonight at 6 p.m. and then eat dinner tomorrow night at 6 p.m. That's
really?
Mm-hmm. Easy, right? That's not a big deal.
That's not a big deal. I could do that.
You could absolutely do this. We're going to be doing a challenge here in the next couple of weeks, doing a 48 though, working up to a 48, making sure that we're kind of free of processed sugars, so we don't have the sugar cravings, giving some really good vitamins and nutrients to our bodies to prepare ourselves, and then doing 48 straight. So I'll let you know when that goes.
Yeah. Now, when you say we are doing this, is there a community that's doing this? Where do people find out about that?
Yeah, so I'll put out like some more information on this actually today and tomorrow. But me and my buddy JC, he's on Instagram as Wrong to Strong. He's an ex cartel member, found God, and now works in the prison systems helping certify women to get their personal training certifications.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, he's a rad dude. So we were going to do it together, kind of for our communities, and to raise money for him to get some more books.
I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, you'll have to definitely send me more information about that. We can put it in the show notes. And here's the thing, like I've done a 48-hour fast before, and I know that once I get into it, it does feel, it's not as hard as I think it's going to be once I get into it. It's the mental thought of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go that long without food that, that makes me not want to do it.
Lean into the savagery, Kimberly. Just like I think that's one of the cool things about it is that you are so different from everybody else who needs to eat every 3 hours because we're addicted to processed food. And so I like to harness that because I'm a contrarian by nature, just to be like, I'm not doing it like that. And I think that really helps me when people are like, you want some food? I'm like, how dare you even ask me, you know? Just have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder,
That's
kind
it.
of from the standard American diet, from people telling us to eat just a bunch of BS all the time.
That's it.
Yeah.
View it as a competition. I'm a very competitive person. So if I'm like,
there you go.
It's a competition, that's what will get me. Nate, this has been a fantastic conversation. Where can people get your book and where can they find out more about what you do?
Well, if you want to grab the book, I'll send it to your audience for free. You just go to getnatesbook.com and I'll send you either a PDF or the Kindle version, whatever works better for you. If you want the Audible or the hard copy, they're on Amazon. And then if you want to connect or see more of my stuff or go watch that reel on sleep I put out recently, go to Instagram and follow @_$1,000,000body. You just have $1 million body. It'll be there because I'm the best. $1 million
That's
body.
right. That's right. That's awesome. Well, we'll put links to all of those things in the show notes. And Nate, fantastic. I love what you're doing for people, for men and for women, just helping them have better habits, better systems, better health overall. Fantastic to talk to you. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Here are my key takeaways from today's episode with Nate. First of all, I absolutely love the simplicity of the framework that he offers and highly encourage you to go and get his book. He's giving it to you for free to our listeners. And I have looked through the book, read many parts of it, and it's really good stuff. Just super helpful in getting started, giving some frameworks if you feel stuck where you currently are. So go to getnatesbook.com. Here's one of my favorite takeaways. The morning routine. It was the last thing he said. And when he said it, I thought, oh, Nate, like we could have probably talked about that for much longer than we did. I love my morning routine. I love for you to have a morning routine. It really does help get your day started off on the right foot and helps you to focus on the things that you really want to achieve and get done during that day, especially when you put it first. It's a great way to ground yourself. So think about your morning routine. Do you have one? Have you implemented it? Does it need to be optimized? Is it maybe not doing for you what you wish it would do right now? Well, maybe you just need to shift some things. Maybe you need to add in working out and taking out journaling. Maybe journaling is better for you at night. This is something that isn't set in stone. It's something you can play with for your age, your situation, your season in life that you're in. All of those things can be thought of as you're thinking about your morning routine. Second key takeaway is prioritize protein. When I talk to people about my 5 favorite facets of health and nutrition, as always, number 1 is sleep. Number 2 is nutrition, and specifically under nutrition, it's prioritizing protein. It's one of the best things that we can do to help build and keep muscle. And as we age, muscle is one of those things that deteriorates if it's not diligently kept up with. And muscle is going to be a huge part of what helps us to live a long and healthy life. I want to be able to get on a plane when I'm 70, 80 years old and put my suitcase in the overhead bin. And you know what's going to help me do that? Muscle and maintaining my muscle, which is why protein is important. And then my third key takeaway from today's conversation is that your mindset and what you tell yourself and about your situation can make or break the progress that you see or that you have in that area. If you tell yourself that you're bad at something, you're shutting down your brain's ability to even move forward. But if you look at that same situation and say, I have an opportunity to get better at this or to enhance my sleep or how I eat or whatever, then you're opening your brain up to be creative and to find possibilities. What is the lie you're currently telling yourself? And you're shutting yourself down from even finding a solution because of the narrative in your head. And how can you reframe what you're saying to be an opportunity, to be something that you can find a solution to and work towards optimizing and making better in your life? As always, please share this episode with a friend who might benefit from it. And please leave a review. The reviews are so helpful in helping the podcast to reach even more people. Until next week, stay strong.